You know what makes you special? It's your imagination. It is your imagination that allows you to imagine things that are not real, but you can make them feel like they're real. You can make them seem to be real. You can make them part of your reality in such a way that you can't even distinguish between real and imagined real. And that begs the question, what is real? Does a tree make a sound when it falls down in the forest and no one's there? No, it does not make a sound when there's no one there to hear it. If there's no animals and no one who can register the sort of the sound waves, and no one and no living being that has the brain that translates those sound waves into noise, into sound. So no, it doesn't make a sound. Our brain creates our reality. A friend of mine who is a psychoanalyst told me something that really stuck with me. He said, Arne, you know, there's no such thing as colors. We call it mental paint. It is our brain that creates that, what we consider reality. Other animals can see different colors that we don't register, that our brain and our eyes don't register. And the way I see the world and the way I experience the world is different than you experience the world, because you came from a different place. You had a different childhood. You had totally different experiences. I have dyslexia. I am red-green colorblind, which I don't know what that means, because I can see red and green. Someone explain to me, please, what exactly that means. My sister always tried to kind of, test me by showing me a green pencil or a red pencil. What color is this? And I always knew, but so there's somewhere in the nuances I see things differently, like you do. So okay, I'm just gonna leave you with that. Please let me know your thoughts. You can find me on social media. Just let me know your thoughts about this. And if you can explain to me what red-green colorblindness actually means, please do. If you want to see me at one of the conferences that I'm speaking at, you have an opportunity on September the 18th. I'll be speaking at the BASE Conference Amsterdam. On October the 19th, I'll be doing a keynote at the World Usability Conference, which is an Austrian conference. And on December the 1st, I'll be doing a keynote at the BA Istanbul conference from Istanbul. Well, actually, I'll be here sitting in my little studio behind a computer, because it's all online. So you can join me from wherever you are. And on every Wednesday, I'll be part of the Wednesday Web Jam, a amazing opportunity for you to learn together with us. And as we say at the Web Jam, failing forward in public. We'll be trying out all kinds of new tools and new platforms, and we have some amazing speakers who bring new topics. And just check it out on www.wednesdaywebjam.com. All right, welcome to the Creative Leadership Podcast. My name is Arne van Oostrom, and I want to thank Matt Holt Books and Design Thinkers Academy and the Creative Leadership Platform for making this podcast happen. Okay. Today, we have on the show Anupa Dasgupta. Anupa from India, or as she said, I grew up a little bit in India, and then I grew up a little bit in Greece. So we're going to talk about that. We're talking about adapting and fitting in. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence and leadership. We're also going to talk a little bit about what a joint family is. I never heard of that. We're going to talk about what it means to be wired differently. So, if you, like me and Anupa, have dyslexia or something else that people might call a learning disability, or you just want to learn about being wired differently and why that is so important to embrace, you're going to enjoy this conversation. So here we go.
I love stories. I really, really love stories. So I feel I've started liking and hearing stories. I don't know, because maybe it involves in understanding people. And that is something that I realized over the years that I really love doing, like having conversations, listening to what people have to say, interacting with them. So I think that human quality is something that I really like. And I have a lot of friends who say that I can't tell. I hate short stories. I feel extremely nonsensical, because what is a summary is just small pieces of information. But when in an actual storytelling, which is long and elongated, you get the essence, you hear about the people, the emotions. So that's what I really like. So if anybody knows me, they'll know that I love listening to stories, telling stories. um, and yeah, I think that would be one of the things. And exploring, going to new places, looking at things, sightseeing, just things like that, just what makes you a person, that you can just give back to the society. So I feel that it's important that I can show that, I can appreciate that with other people and also with myself. So yeah, that would kind of sum me up.
So where do you get your stories?
So so the thing is that, like, while growing up, so I grew up in India for a bit, then I grew up in Greece for a bit. So and then I came back. So I've met a lot of different kinds of people. So when I see things, whether it's going to a place, or whether it's exploring, cooking or eating, or doing anything that requires an activity, I feel that the stories kind of come out of that. And the fact that you can take that situation and you can then re-narrate it, I think that's the importance, that's where my inspiration comes from. So it's the fact that we both are chatting, that's a story. Or I go out, I see something that somebody's wearing or doing at a shop, or it's just that it's these little nuances that we see amongst people. I think that's what inspires me, to kind of use that in my work, or use that in my this personal life. So I'm intrigued by this.
So when you see someone and that person intrigues you, do you create a story in your mind about that?
Sometimes, yeah, I like, if I'm a part of a situation, like, which is interesting to me, and sometimes I feel like, what is interesting, so, and that's also a thing about a story. Like, when you're narrating it, like, because I don't like short stories, I like long stories. It might not be interesting to the other person, but it's nevertheless, I still explain myself whether they like it or not. So I think that's just kind of grown into me, that that kind of storytelling. And I feel that this kind of experience is something that I've kind of grown to. I was never aware of the fact that I liked doing all this. And I think it is only in the past couple of years that when I've heard people saying, oh, what is this story? Are you going to give me a summary version? And, or things like that. I really like that fact that, we can share things, with each other. So, yeah.
But I have a sense that we live in a world where it is actually all about short stories and sound bites, and right. So it is almost might be difficult for you to kind of go through a world where everything is so quick and all the
Yeah.
it's all like Snapchat and Instagram sized. So is that something you struggle with, or is that something you enjoy battling
Um,
against?
so the thing is that so the way that like my thinking has evolved, so I was dyslexic, and it took me a while to kind of understand that. And I felt that there were some things like you said, things are very fast paced and very immediate. And in the beginning, I was trying to adapt to it, saying that that's the way to go. But then with time and through experience, I realized that, this is who you are. And it is fine that if you are like this, and, it's that self acceptance that had come up. And I realized that it's okay, even if there is a way that certain things are, required to be in a certain manner, it's fine. But I think
Okay.
it's also important that, one also positions themselves in a certain way that people can understand who you are. So I think that is also really important, that there are things that you need to do things with purpose. I think that's what's important. There are things that require fast paced narrations while others don't. So I think it's important to join that bridge between what is required and what is important and what you can do because you like it. So I think those are the
Hmm.
three
All
things
right.
that kind of kind of create that mystery, or that you know uh, yeah, that story for me.
So I want to talk about dyslexia. You
Yeah,
said you were dyslexic. I think you still
yeah,
are.
yeah,
I don't think you're gonna ever get rid of that. Like
yeah,
myself, like myself.
yeah. No,
Uh,
but once somebody had told me that when will it go away, and I found it so, I was so amused, and I
yeah,
was like, I said it's not even something that goes away; it's just a part of you, and it's
yeah.
fine. And I
Oh,
think that is a acceptance that
yeah.
I think a lot of us need to get. People who have it, or people who are around it, that it's fine. There is no going away. It's here to stay, and so what?
It is fine. It's what defines you,
Yeah,
and it's something that is. And I've said this before. It is a superpower.
yeah,
Um, I'll talk about that in a moment, but I just want to go back to what you said earlier. You said I grew up a bit in India,
yeah,
and then I grew up a little bit more in Greece, and then I went
yeah.
back. So just start at the beginning. So where you were born in India?
Yeah,
Where in
so
India?
I was born in this place called Calcutta. It's in the east. I think I was about 6 months or so, and then we moved to Mumbai for about I think about 6 years, and then we moved to Greece. So Greece was a long span. I was there till about 18 or 19. So I did
So
my
what did your parents? So
so
because I mean, first
yeah,
of all, they moved to Mumbai, and then they moved. What's how what?
yeah,
Tell me.
so the thing is that my family comes from a shipping background.
Ah,
And yeah, so either people are in the merchant navy or they're doing shipbroking. So it's all related to the sea.
yes.
And so both Mumbai and Athens are seafaring, kind of ports. So
Mm.
because of my father, we moved to Greece, and it was great. I mean, it helped me kind of adapt to people and places very easy, because I mean, when I was in Greece, the I don't know about Greece right now, but then it was very easygoing and people were very accepting, and there was no like cultural barrier. And I think that's one of the things that I feel as a person. I've grown up with these boundaries. I mean, for me, they don't exist. You are who you are as a person. And I think that's one of the things that are important to build your character, to build you as a leader as well, because you're not creating boundaries, you're accepting people for who you are and understanding them. And I think that's what Greece definitely taught me about. Yeah, and school life was easy, though. Yeah, exactly, being dyslexic, I had issues, but they were not like something that I had to struggle with. Or maybe I wasn't aware that I was struggling. Okay, am I mistaken? Maybe I wasn't aware that I was struggling, but it was not till later on that I realized that this struggle was important. And
Mm.
we didn't have extra classes. Yeah, my classmates were amazing. My art teacher, who I still am in touch with, was so important.
Because how old were you then, sir? How old were you when
I
you
think
were
I
in
was
Greece?
like, when I went, I think I was like like 7 or 8. It was
Mm.
really, and then, and I left when I was like 18 or 19.
Ah, right.
And yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons I also got into this creative field, because I felt as a person, she gave me the freedom to understand who I was and to explore my skills. And I was actually good at it, unlike maths or biology, which was definitely. And sometimes now I look back, I'm like, I'm happy that didn't work out for me, because I'm so happy doing what I am doing right now. So, and but I would have liked to have this understanding back then, but I
Mm.
feel that, it's important that now I look back and I see this journey was important. But yes, I would also say that people who are in this, in this kind of space, they do get the awareness and let's say the help, not even help, the tools to kind of understand who they are. And I think that's really necessary, because you know how do you I mean, there has to be that purpose, to make yourself happy, to make yourself, want to do things, to aspire, to create, to evolve. So I think these things are important when you kind of and when you're in a struggle, sometimes you miss out. It's not that it's not there, you just miss out. But it comes back at some point. When you put the dots together, it does come back. And I think that's what happened, like, over the years. This kind of journey that I had was very self-initiated. There wasn't any formal kind of intervention that I had, like how kids have today. And I came back, I did my BA from in India, and it still was struggling.
So how did that work? How did that work? So I'm curious about this, because you were 8, 7, 8 when you went to Greece.
Yeah.
You went to primary school
Yeah,
in
primary school, I
Greece.
did high school, I did my O and A levels there also.
Right.
No, sorry, I did my O levels there, and then I'd come back. And
So you speak Greek.
I used to, but I do understand now.
Yeah,
I do.
well,
Yeah, and I meet people like on and off now, and they're like, "Oh my God, you were in Greece, and do you understand? And do you
yeah.
speak?" I speak a little bit, but I do understand. So
But
yeah,
did you go to like international school?
yeah. I
Right.
went to a British school
Yeah,
there,
right. Okay.
and
Right.
yeah,
Sure,
so
sure.
it was easier to make friends. And
Yeah.
yeah, I
Sure.
mean, back then people didn't care. Like, if you were like not nice, it was because of who you are, not because you were from a certain place. Or I don't know. For me, I felt that, like when I hear stories of how people or how kids, the experience that they feel in school, I feel blessed that those were not the reasons why I didn't
Hmm.
like school.
Because that's a very, you can, are you building boats? Are you,
No, so some family members, like my brother and my uncle, they're actually in the merchant navy. So they
right.
sail off and they go to sea. My father is in the shipbroking side of it.
Yeah.
So, it's more offshore.
But it's not one family company.
No, right now it was a family company, but now people have started on their own or gone
Right.
into different, different companies. So it was like that in back in the day, but now it's because of the way life has and people's expectations and purposes, it's become different. So I was the only one who started the journey of being in design. Not that there was any issue. I mean, I like designing, I like storytelling. I thought I'd become a fashion designer. I mean, I actually started with fashion designing in one of my earlier courses, but yeah, so I
Okay.
mean, I was the only one who looked into design, and I'm glad I did so.
And so you have a brother, you have more, you have like more
Yeah,
siblings?
so the thing is that I grew up, though we were in like nuclear family setups, I come from a joint family. So my immediate extended family is about 35. Like, that's the
What is a joint family?
Oh, okay. So joint families, that is a very
Oh,
it's such a commonly used term in India. So it's basically, let's say, many people within a family structure living together. So let's say two sets of parents, kids, uncles, aunts, grandparents. This was quite a trend. Even in some families, it's still a trend now. So they all live together in large houses. Either they run a business, or they just stay together. So that's a joint family. So everybody stays together in one big house. But now, given the fact that behaviors are changing, society is changing, economics are changing, aspirations are changing, people now live in much more nuclear families. But
but that changed. So when you were in India, you were
yeah,
living in this environment of a joint family.
yeah.
But in
And,
Greece,
yeah, it was just my parents and me.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
and then so do you have, so in sort of before you moved to Greece, do you have any memories of that, of living in that?
In Mumbai, yes, I have, I'm still in touch with one of my friends who was my friend back in Mumbai, and she was so when I went to London like 2 years ago, she was there. So, so I think like in India, people are like networks. So I was telling a friend of mine, why don't you use open an Insta account with whatever you're cooking, just like add like two family members, like two sets of family members, and that's 100 people. You're good to go.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And like in an Indian wedding, like a small wedding is like 500 people, or like a small wedding is 100. Like, and that's also people like, fighting with you and saying, oh, you didn't invite this one or that one. So, yeah, like, so.
Or that's the, okay. So that was your experience in Mumbai. Then you went to
Yeah.
Greece. That was very different. You went to school. You went to an international school.
Yeah.
But so you did your primary school, and then you went to study or to college.
Yeah,
Or
college.
the
I
equivalent.
came back to India for my undergrad.
Because
And
you were 18 then, so you
yeah,
weren't
so,
finished. So how
yeah.
did that transition go? Being sort of, did you go back
It
to an
was,
extended family? Did you go to
no,
Mumbai?
kind of, because the thing is that the shift between, and because I think that was in my prime of my struggle in terms of my education,
Because of your
and
dyslexia.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was like I barely
What do you mean with
passed.
your prime? Yeah. So what?
I feel
How was
like I
that?
was really struggling. I feel like I was really struggling at that time, because in terms of like memorizing and like reiterating whatever we had to do, and kind of creating that into a
Because you
structure.
didn't know you
I
had
didn't know.
dyslexia, right?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't even know till
And
I actually, the only first person who actually realized that was my principal when I came back to India, which was when I was doing my A levels, and she had called in my family, and then we went and we met a counselor, but the counselor said no, there was nothing wrong. And probably also the acceptance level, like, oh God, what will people think, what if I leave, what if I have to go to a different school. I think that today, I think parents, schools, they need to create that safety around, not only for the child who's going through that, but also for the parent, saying that yes, this is okay, and there is nothing wrong. I didn't have that. And I think I was lucky to have very strong friends, because I think more than family, family, but equally strong peers definitely have a part to play. And I was lucky enough that I had friends throughout who kind of supported me and helped me,
right.
and helped me see like the qualities that I needed to kind of imbibe to see who I was. And yeah, it was very difficult, but I felt that this time that I had with myself, I guess the thing is that I started seeing people who had the ability to be, who had the ability to excel. And I also always used to wonder, what is it that they're doing, but I never wanted to be them, and But then one day I was like, okay, I've gone through this. I just need to step it up. And that's what happened. It was just like overnight. I'm like, this has happened. This has happened. It's okay. Now, how do I take my life forward? And it just like just switched over.
A friend of mine
Yeah.
who is very heavily dyslexic, and
Yeah.
she also kind of did some research into that topic.
Yeah.
When we got to know each other, one of the first things she said to me, or she asked me, she said, "So are you dyslexic?" And I said, "Oh yeah, how do you know?" Because we were just speaking, and she said, "I can hear because of the way you speak." And did anybody ever tell you that you can hear that by the way you speak? Because I can hear that. So it's interesting because I also. So
wow.
I
felt that. I feel that, but then I thought it was only me.
No.
But yeah, no, but nobody's ever pointed that out.
So I'm not sure whether that is something that is ever properly researched, or whether that is even true. It's just something that is in my mind, that there's a connection between the way you process words, language, and dyslexia, and the way your brain is wired, obviously. And I think, and it's not just people who have dyslexia, I think, but I don't know. I haven't done that research, but I think there is a connection between sort of what I would say thinking out loud. I always say I have to hear myself, and then so my words enter my ears and my brain, and I'm like, oh, or maybe it could also be this way, and so I go off into this kind of long kind of explanation of things that for a lot of people, like, well, can you just kind of be more like concrete? So there's a connection between the way you speak, but there's also a connection between your kind of your sort of your search for long stories, your kind of appreciation of long stories and storytelling.
Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting link, which I haven't done any research on, but listening to you speaking, I'm so aware all of a sudden of the way I sometimes can talk. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I can hear it. It's funny. It is a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful because it is a different way of thinking and talking and explaining and communicating. Anyway, so I thought I mentioned that. But we're in your story.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm kind of pulling you back every now and then. So because like, stop. I go back because I was still in Greece. You were going to school. You went back to India. You went back to Mumbai. Did you go?
No, I went back. So I've hopped around. So I went back to Bangalore.
But you hopped around. So with your family?
No.
Did you move back to India by yourself?
No, so I moved back. I moved back with my family, and then I finished my A levels. Then I obviously had to go to university. So for university, I had only one choice. One choice meaning I just wanted to do design.
Right.
And there were like at that time there were like 3 or 4 options, and I picked one, and I practically just picked up my bags and I went and I just knocked on the door and said that I'd like to apply, and I sat and I gave my exams, and I got through, and that's how my college life started.
What was the school? Where was it, and what was the school?
It was in Bangalore, so it was the Shishti School of Art, Design and Technology.
Right. Okay.
So, so yes, I started my design journey there. More than my design journey, the kind of friends that I made were just so important. The experiences, because you're living alone. You have this whole kind of freedom to, not only in terms of your work, but in terms of your, in terms of your in terms of your personal developments. It was amazing. And but yeah, I think I still, at that time, there was a struggle because I wasn't aware of how I would cope, like professionally cope. So I think that struggle was still there. And after that, I was working with an agency, and I think that was my key moment where I realized that the struggle has to stop here. So one day I just sat down and I reevaluated what all can I do. So I realized that I needed to be self-employed and I need to do things that make me happy. So
Can you explain just a little bit more about that struggle? What was it like?
So
What kind of...
the struggle was like in terms of fitting into, like, let's say a office culture, or the way that you think, because there are some things which are very streamlined. I'm not discrediting the people who think like that. It's just a way of thinking, and I felt that I couldn't adapt to it, and it was becoming a shortcoming. And I felt that that's not right, because the thing is that, like I said, I love storytelling, and there is a part of me that I like getting inspired. Like, the first person who inspired me was Oprah Winfrey. I was enamored. Like, when I was in Greece, I saw one of her talk shows, and I was like, wow, just look at her. She's there in front of so many people, connecting people from different parts of the world, of strata, like, it's so inclusive. And I was just like, wow, I mean, and so in my head, like, that's one of my things on my bucket list, to meet Oprah. I really want to meet her. And there are things like people like that who've inspired me, along with people like, whether they're family members or friends. So, and I said that, like, I need life to move on right now. And what do I do? So I took that step where I went and I went to a center where we did one of these tests again for dyslexia and ADHD and all that. And I said, and I think some of the results were that I had this kind of disability. So I said, okay, fine, I need to figure myself out before, because I felt my skills at that time were not nurtured. I was struggling, and I'm like, there's no point. So what I did was that I made a decision. I turned self-employed, and I felt that was the best decision I could have done for myself. It gives you the power to see what you're capable of. It brings you to a point where you have this sense of situational leadership, because you never know, because as a self-employed person, you're your own face to your clients. So there's no point of giving any what can I say? There's no point where you have to justify yourself. They see who you are. You're not giving your background. And I think that kind of gave me the self-confidence of who I was. And I think that really was a game changer for me. And to build that kind of self awareness, and also that self awareness led to the way that I started working, in the way that I started thinking, the way that I started presenting my work, the way that I started finding clients of my own. Like today, when the fact that I'm even sharing my story, like 10 years ago, I would have been shocked if anybody even wanted to hear me. But the fact that today that I have the ability to share this story with somebody, I feel that's a success in itself. And so I felt that that's really important. And I started reading this person called Louise Hayes. She's no more now. She was a self-empowerment coach, a spiritual leader. And she talks about self-motivation, self-building yourself. And I think just reading her, and she's also been through a lot in her life, but the fact that she helps you see the the key competencies that you have, and she takes them out and she helps you see how you can manifest and utilize that. And I think that was really a changing point of my life, because otherwise you're like, you're growling in self-pity, like this is not happening, that is not happening, why is it happening to me? And you're not looking at your core skills. And I feel that after I kind of re-evaluated my life, I felt that I had the ability to lead teams. I had the ability to connect with people, in terms of, on projects, on, on client facing. Who would have thought, like back in the day, I couldn't even write an essay without like going through it like 500 times. I still do. But the thing is that
Yeah.
self of confidence was when I realized that I can do this. And I think that is something that I feel people in like who are going through this, that they should always realize that you can always change. There is always that power where you can, your story, your situation can help someone and you can build around it.
But it's also, if I listen to you, there's an awareness and an ability to reflect on, who you are, where you're from, and not only accepting, who you are, but also just the fact that you can look back and say, hey, actually it is important. It was an important journey. And so one thing I'm curious about, when you did that test, the first time you did that test, and they said, by the way, I want to also go back to that principle you were talking about, because you said there was a principle, and that principle said, I think, she might be dyslexic.
So she said that I think you might have a learning disability. At that point of my life, I was like, oh my God.
Because that sounds different than dyslexia. That sounds like, because disability, to me, dyslexia is not a disability. But if someone says to you, you have a learning disability.
But I don't think she knew at that point. Anyways, so at that point.
But was that the start of was that the sort of the moment where you thought, hang on, there's something. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to kind of recap a little bit. Whereas I can imagine that when you grow up and you have dyslexia, and the people I speak to who have that, and I have a daughter with dyslexia. I have dyslexia. I knew I had dyslexia when I was a kid, quite early on. So I never really felt insecure in the sense that I thought I was dumb or I always maybe I even use it a little bit as an excuse, maybe, not measure, like, oh yeah, I have dyslexia.
Be proud and dyslexic. That's what I say.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is that if you are sort of that, and then you get the diagnosis, like with my daughter, she was actually happy that finally she knew, in her words, what is wrong with me. And I said, oh, there's a cutie, there's nothing wrong with you. So what was your kind of, was that moment when your principal told you like you might have a learning disability? How was that a pivotal moment? Was that sort of a your parents
it wasn't a pivotal moment, because I was actually, oh gosh, what is this? Because I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
So I felt like that key moment was where it could have been an intervention. There wasn't, and because also the counselor said that, there is nothing really that needs to be dealt with. It was kind of like put under the carpet. But the key point, there were two stages in my life where I actually went in for a test. And both those times after I found out, I was so excited and so pleased with myself that I felt that, wow, okay, at least I know. I mean, it's not me, because the thing is that when people don't know, or people around you, they'll be like, because human behavior, there's a pattern in way people work and the way that people think that that's right. there's a tag in the way that we should function. And I think that is, and even in terms of looking at how people are, how
Yeah.
leaders are, we always give them a tag. But why do we need a tag? Who says that this is the right way of doing things or behaving? So I felt like at least once when that test result came, I don't have to justify myself, and I think that was important for me to kind of actually do it for myself.
Mm.
But I had a conversation with a friend. She's like, okay, there is this justification, but what do you do with it now? Are you going to use it as an excuse? Because,
Like I did.
yeah, like I said, it's not an excuse, but it's a matter of fact,
Yes,
and
of
I think
course.
people need to understand that, like, let's say now I've applied to a few jobs, and they're all design based jobs. There were questions which were like, when you get those, okay, you've passed the first stage of, because you've submitted your CV. There are these math and economic tests that people from a design thinking background has to do. I was just flabbergasted. Obviously, there's no ways like I will understand that logic, or I will understand that kind of like a computation at at that fast paced level. And I said that, this is exactly why we need to be more aware. This is why we need to be more inclusive, not only for ourselves but for our community that that we're living in, because then things like this, opportunities are going to be lost, so I don't think it's an excuse. I think it's just building an awareness for people. And exactly like today, I have shared this kind of story. Like I share it at the drop of my hat. Like, whether it's in a conversation, whether it's for, inspiring someone else, I think it's important that people need to know, because I think organizations, working cultures are all coming up in a certain way. And especially in the time of pandemic, where things like mental health and other sort of things are in so much of focus, we need to be empathetic to understand how we can just communicate and coexist with each other. So yeah.
Yeah, and so can you, because I think this is what you're doing, because you're linking, because again, what you have experienced, what you went through, the things that make you, that is, all that shapes you and shapes your thinking and shapes your kind of understanding of reality. How is all that and your story and all that, and not only dyslexia, but also and you shared a little bit about that, moving from India to Greece, so being in a different culture and being able to adapt really easily and quickly, but all that, how is that kind of how did that shape your understanding of the things you're doing now, and the way, and what is your kind of vision or your philosophy around, for instance, leadership, and what leadership should be, and I hear a lot of leadership in your story, because it is about you taking control and saying, hey, I have to kind of move forward now. And so there's a lot of self leadership in that, which is really powerful, but also I can imagine for a lot of people difficult, because I think a lot of people are like, where do you start? And because how it sounds like, let's go and do something, and like, where do I start? And so can you talk a little bit about that, kind of what your what your thinking is?
So I feel so for me, leadership is very situational. I feel in today's day and age, everybody is a leader or has the capacity to be a leader. Because see, the thing is that for me, when I look at what makes a leader, things like like the core skills of let's say business acumen, strategic thinking, XYZ, that's a given. But what makes a leader is the fact that you have the ability to build on your emotional intelligence, your empathy, to understand what is happening around your teams. If you are if you're ready to question, then be ready to be questioned as well. I think that is something leaders forget, that, today, that, if I'm questioning everybody around me, I should also be in the position to be questioned. And what makes a leader, it's something that I feel is very, very subjective. Like today, people who are popular, who have been elected, are they leaders? Why does a leader need a tag? Because we are in a certain setup, like in an organization, suddenly a person is promoted, they have this certain XYZ role, and and that might have that essence of being a leader, but are they really being a leader? Like I know a lot of teams who have bosses, and they're not happy, you know or you have political leaders where people are, they've been elected, but are people happy? So I think the sense of leadership is, I think it's more about what you can bring as a person than rather than what skills you have, because skill is something that you can acquire through practice. I could be wrong, but I feel what makes you a leader is this quality of connecting with people, empowering them. It's not only about me saying that my purpose and my agenda. I think a lot of leaders have this, and I felt that that is what I wanted to kind of show people, that it's about what you have within yourself, and you can share with people. It's not only about what you say, bring in, make it inclusive. But on the other hand, sometimes I also feel, like that saying that Steve Jobs said, if you want people to like you, sell ice cream. I just love it. And yeah, I mean, I feel as a leader sometimes you have to be like that, but more so, for it shouldn't be about your journey. It shouldn't be the I, it should be the we. I feel that what makes you
But
more
it makes you
complete.
very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I
It
think, and yeah, go ahead.
um it, so that's where you strike that balance between liking and selling the ice cream, but sharing the ice cream while you sell it. So I feel it's a tough call, but I think being a leader is showing what you have to
Yeah.
share with, because the
Okay.
thing is that yeah.
But if you are a leader or manager or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
a boss,
Yeah.
and you are in a successful company and
Yeah.
it's doing fine,
Yeah.
and so and then and you are basically, your role is to radiate experience and knowledge and knowing it all, and being
Yeah.
being a strong
Yeah.
the strong person, the
Yeah.
strong leader. Okay, so a lot of people will kind of basically accept that because they might, because they are insecure and they find it nice to have
Yeah.
someone who
Yeah.
pretends to know everything, because it is pretending.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
then you come in and say, yeah, but it's about emotional intelligence. It's about it's actually about making them very vulnerable, about being questioned,
Yeah.
and about being
Yeah.
leaders, not managers.
Yeah.
So is there, I mean, what would you I can understand how they would say, yeah, but my life's fine, thank you very much, and we're doing really well. So what is the urgency? What is the necessity for them? Why would they change? Why would they care?
I feel that I have seen some leaders today of organizations where during this pandemic, they said that the main thing of a company is to stay afloat. It is not about profit. It's not about loss. It's about to stay afloat, so everybody within your organization survives and we get through this pandemic as a team. Now, the thing is that I feel that is a key quality of a leader, because the thing is that you're not thinking about the present moment. You're thinking about how you can build how your pre-existing relationship, your teams, how you can take them from A to B. And I think that is something that I feel is important, because if you're in a team, like I've seen, like with my clients who are, working in, in their, like, let's say in their setups, it's when it becomes about me, myself, and my journey as a leader, because a leader cannot survive alone. There has to be an alliance, right?
You
So
have
the
to
thing
lead
is that,
someone.
yeah, exactly, who are you leading? So you cannot lead yourself all the time. So I've seen where when people are in that journey where there are others and they're going along, and yeah, there are people who would like to be mentored, who would like to look at somebody and say, yes, I would like to be like them one day. That's fine, but I think that that sense of inclusivity is very important for a leader to accept and bring about. That's why I always say that if you're questioning someone, be ready to be questioned. And the thing is that, and when I've asked this to someone, I can't remember who, I think they were in a leadership role, and they said that, yes, that's true, but I'm very open, but I can see when they with their actions is that it's not true. but but
Which is very difficult, because
yeah,
if you feel
yeah,
that you are in a role and you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
actually real, or
yeah,
you're pretending
yeah,
to be something
yeah,
you're not, everyone
yeah,
feels that. And I think if you
yeah,
want to create a safe space for people, psychologically safe space, and if you want to kind of build trust,
yeah,
you have to be authentic, because we all know when you're not, because it's not just because
yeah,
it's, we
yeah,
sense
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I think that being a leader, I think you have to be valued and you have to give that value. So it is not only about what you are getting from your, let's say, your peers, or the people, or in whatever context being a leader is. I think value is very, very important. Recognition is very important. I've seen in companies where leaders, there are some team leaders who are loved because, there is that sharing. But or in other cases, they might just acknowledge the leader as a leader because of the tag and the role, but not because of the person.
Yeah, and something
And
else you mentioned was happiness.
yeah,
So I, and I totally agree, but at the same time,
yeah,
I go back to this kind of this manager
yeah,
or
yeah,
this CEO, and
yeah,
they're running this successful
yeah,
company, and there's these numbers of,
yeah,
when they do research,
yeah,
where there's these numbers. I think
yeah,
I read this
yeah,
article from the UK, and I recently there was an article
yeah,
from the US
yeah,
which said
yeah,
80 or more percent
yeah,
of the people in corporate businesses, in corporate roles, are unhappy in
yeah,
their job.
yeah, yeah,
So, but at the same time, these companies are successful. So
yeah.
why would they care? Because
Um,
it's a shareholder system, and the people
yeah,
who, it's just, I'm being very cynical now, but
yeah.
it's just human
Yeah,
resource,
yeah, yeah.
right?
No, yeah, it is. And the things that, but if you notice as a trend amongst most consultancies is the retainership and the loyalty. How many people actually stick around for, let's say, 10 years, 12 years to go from stage A to stage B? Because the thing is that there are plethora of jobs. There are people, there are perks, there are XYZ, everything is offered to you all the time for the
Mhm.
bigger, better buck. Now, the thing is that if you want to be a leader, and if you want like the quality of people to be within your team, and to grow with them, that is something that a lot of people, I know that, like, organizations struggle with the retainership because, the option is there. And there are
Mm.
so many people who are starting up their own startups because they want to, they might have the skill, they might
Mm.
have the, and there are, so that I feel the economics of the way that leaders are also being molded has changed.
Mm.
So if you're self-employed, you want to create your own startup, there are a lot of funding companies, people can be your equity partners, XYZ. So there is a space for that. So you don't
Mm.
have to rely on a certain organization to be a leader.
Mm.
So So I feel in that sense, being a leader, I mean, it's not easy being a leader. There are a lot of options to be a leader. How do you be the right leader? I think that's the question that that is really important.
Well, because what you said earlier, you said it's situational.
Yeah.
Also, and I think it should very much link. When it's authentic leadership, it should link to who you are. So it's not the same as anyone else. You are your kind of leader. So what I'm hearing and sensing is also, and I think you're an example of someone who has had struggles fitting into systems that were provided to you. But it's actually because of that struggle that you are so much aware of the fact that or you are open to what is outside of those systems. When you grow up as a suppose you grow up and you don't have any dyslexia or any learning disabilities or anything, you fit right in to the system. The system rewards you for that behavior that the system provides you, and so you grow up in that way, and then you go. You have your career, you start working for a big consultancy, then you get hired by this corporate, and you are in the, you become a manager, et cetera, you wear your shirt and your tie, and whatever that means. All right. So, and you've been rewarded for that all the time, right? That was the behavior asked from you. And then all of a sudden, there is there may be a pandemic, or there's global warming around the corner, or there is artificial intelligence, there's technology, there's competition from weird places that you never expected it. So for those people, so you are an example of someone, although for you it's kind of like, that's that's the way I think and that's the way it is, but it is because of what what the principal might call a learning disability. Actually, it wasn't a learning disability. You've learned way more important lessons. It was a huge opportunity for learning that you've used because you had, and not because you had a choice. But so I'm kind of reacting a little bit to this idea of disability, learning disability. When you go through life, you learn to either fit in systems or not fit in systems. You go through life trying to kind of understand the language and the systems that are provided to you. And if you are always a little bit on the edge or on the outside or trying to get in, you learn so many other things, right?
And I feel this, I don't know whether it's even you feel it, is that I feel that now that since I've over the years, I've created, like, let's say, techniques or tools that I've created for myself to kind of make my life easier. And I feel that's why also I enjoy doing what I do, let's say, creating a certain kind of design tool or XYZ, because I can use my own experience in building that. And I think that's also, I feel that if it was otherwise, I don't know if I would have this kind of empathetic eye to do it.
Well, it's also that of course. But it's also that we live in a time where we talk about diversity. And diversity doesn't only mean that we need to have like men and women on the board or people from different cultures. It's also about diversity of thought. It's about diversity of the way you look at the world from a different angle. Your angle is different because you are wired differently. So your perspective is a different perspective, which is amazingly important, more and more so. So I think, so to your point, you will create different solutions that other people will not even, they can't even comprehend because they are not wired that way and they haven't had your experience. So if you look at life as a learning journey, and not just school and all the courses that you can do. That's, sure, that's good. You need to, it's nice if you can read and write and speak and all that, sure. But there's so much more that we learn as human beings, right? So I think you're at a point where you can use all those skills that you've developed and with your way of looking at things, that is so valuable, I think. in the current situation. And
Yeah.
so I'm really interested in your, you're feeling that because of the pandemic that we're
Yeah.
in right now, there's something happening and there's a bigger need for thinking differently and doing things differently. And I think that we're going towards a future, and the pandemic is obviously speeding things up, or pushing it into a certain direction, but there's a future that is out there that's very unknown to all of us.
Yeah.
But what is your sense, from where you are now and the way you look at the world, and what you bring, and the way you think of solutions, and et cetera. What do you sense is, how do you connect that to, where is this all going?
Oh,
If you'd be a futurist, what is your sense? What is your feeling?
I think in like in today's day and age, there is definitely a need to look at your personal self. I think the personal self will help you guide you towards your professional self. Earlier, I feel it was the other way around, that your professional self guided you to your personal time, your personal aspirations. But I think with the pandemic and the way that organizations are kind of re-evaluating the working methods, the working spaces, I think it's very important to look at your personal surrounding. And I think once, if you connect to that, I think businesses will also start shifting and finding a way to use experiences that kind of highlight that. Because I feel that if you're in a company, and if your company's value, it's not that it was not done earlier, but I feel now that there is a definite need and people are looking at it. So I think that kind of shift, that the personal self is going to be into focus. Personal, probably in relation to a much more digitally adept surrounding. I think everybody at any global scenario has to get digitally more adept. But though I'm of a belief that it's so important to keep our physical touch points intact while creating products, I'm always a big believer of that. I don't know how that's going to happen given the current scenario, but I think the understanding, the relationships, and the behavior, the importance will change. Maybe we'll have newer values, but maybe they'll be better than what we had earlier. So I think that's something that we definitely need to look out, that maybe the old values that we had were important, but it's equally important to create newer values and create businesses, product, experiences around that. We don't know. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't, but we'll still have to try.
Awesome. Thank you. I last question, because we've been talking about dyslexia and learning disabilities, and it's been, so it's a big part of my my development, and the way I was kind of shaped, and so I'm really, I'm always really happy to hear other people talk about that. So I know, and as as you also mentioned before we had this interview, that listening to someone talk about that, you'd wish you'd heard these stories before. Just as a and I know there's people listening with maybe not dyslexia, but maybe another kind of maybe a form of autism, maybe, I don't know, it can be many things that kind of make you feel that you're there's something going on, and you just don't know if that will it go away, can I adapt, can I be normal, should I be, et cetera, et cetera. So what is your, if you give these people advice, or share something with them, as a piece of advice, or
I would say never second guess yourself. That's something I feel that is so important. Never second guess yourself. Be proud of who you are and be open and receptive to learn. I think those are. I feel in this kind of journey, there's a lot of second guessing, and you lose out on a lot of opportunities and a lot of experiences. So yes, we all have to adapt to our environment, whether we are of who we are, and so it's not like subjective that we have to adapt. So that's a given, but be bold, be adore yourself. What else? And be happy in what you're doing. There's no right or wrong. The more happier you are with yourself, the more you can give to the world, and and appreciate. So that's what I would say to people
Wonderful.
who need to hear it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was really memorable, I must say.